What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. So it looks like A Star is Born. Saul Canelo Alvarez. They just released the pay-per-view forecasted numbers. It looks like he's sitting right around 350,000 pay-per-view buys. Now, some of you guys might be thinking, hey, that's kind of low. That's not that good. But you got to keep in mind, this was Canelo's very first solo pay-per-view. And the reason I say solo is because Angulo, although he has a fan-friendly style, and some people know him, he's still not a powerhouse. He's not a Miguel Cotto, Pacquiao, Mayweather. He's not a known name to people who don't really watch boxing. Like, I have tons of friends, and if I said Mayweather, Pacquiao, Cotto, and Angulo, I guarantee you the non-diehard boxing fans would probably at least know someone like Angulo. Not saying he's a bad fighter, it's just the way of the world. So 350,000 is a very solid number for him. And you also have to consider his fight card. His fight card was severely altered and changed kind of at the last minute. Omar Figueroa, who has a very exciting style, very fan-friendly. He's a power puncher. He's aggressive. He shows that he's a warrior. He showed that in the Arakawa fight. And he got injured in training camp. So the fight was scrapped, at least with him. So Figueroa was off. Jamal Charlo was supposed to go after a title against Carlos Molina, and Carlos Molina was supposed to defend. As you guys know, as I reported on my station, that Carlos Molina had trouble with the law, a warrant surfaced, and that fight was canceled. So Jamal Charlo thinks it was a setup. He thinks that they pulled the plug on the fight in order to give Canelo an opportunity at that title in the future. So they made up this story. I don't know. That's a bit extreme that they would go through the lengths of saying he's arrested and possibly getting deported for that. I don't know. Stranger things have happened. Either way, Canelo did solid numbers, especially given what happened to his card. A lot of people said his card fell apart and they weren't paying for it to begin with. So obviously 350,000 people end up paying for it. And just to give you guys some more insight on his numbers, Timothy Bradley versus Juan Manuel Marquez last year, they fought on pay-per-view with Top Rank, HBO pay-per-view, and that fight did 375,000 to around 390,000 in pay-per-view buys. So you gotta look at that and analyze that. Juan Manuel Marquez is a fighter who's been God fighting since like '93, and he's a big star over in Mexico, and the people know his name and his face. Plus, he was with Timothy Bradley, who was no stranger to HBO pay-per-view. He had fought against Manny Pacquiao, so he garnered some fans and a lot of media attention, to say the least, because a lot of people said there was a controversial win for him. And then he was on regular HBO against Ruslan Provodnikov, showed he was a warrior, and he was coming off of that impressive fight. Not impressive that he looked great, but impressive in the fact that he was able to withstand that storm. And between those two fights, he was going into the Marquez fight. So that fight didn't do that much higher of a number than Canelo Angulo. So that is impressive to me, if you put it in perspective, because you have two solid guys who have proven their worth, Marquez and Bradley, and their pay-per-view numbers weren't really significantly higher than Canelo's, and Canelo was carrying Angulo both in the fight and then with the pay-per-view buys. So that's very impressive. Shout out to all the Mexicans. Shout out to Mexico. That really shows that these Mexican fans get behind their fighters and support. I think more Americans need to look at some of these other countries, the UK, Mexico, Argentina. These countries show loyalty and they support their own, and they support when a fighter is trying to put on for their country. And it showed in the Canelo fight. And I'm not saying obviously 350,000 Mexicans bought this. However, that's a big turnout. And we know the Latin communities always contribute heavily to just pay-per-views in general. So shout out to them. Shout out to the UK, to Mexico, all the countries that really represent. And when they have a fighter, they rock with them. The UK did it with Ricky Hatton. Mexico's doing it with Canelo. And it shows with these numbers. So this picture is a celebration picture with Canelo and his team cutting the cake. celebrating the successful victory over Angulo, and also celebrating 350,000 pay-per-view buys, which again is a solid number. It was his first pay-per-view, and his card fell apart, and still he had a very solid number, to the point where the network probably didn't lose any money in making this particular fight, because they didn't even really promote it. I didn't see non-stop commercials like I seen for Mayweather, Canelo, and stuff. So you take that out of the budget. So very impressive from the young star going forward. Hopefully they pit him up against someone good in his next fight. He obviously has a following, and this solidifies the idea that there's no reason not to make Erislandy Lara fight. Even if Erislandy Lara puts no asses in the seats, Canelo obviously can carry his opponent. Against Austin Trout in San Antonio, he sold 40,000. And granted, I know how the fight game works. I know how these boxing venues work. A lot of times they give away free tickets to make the audience look deeper, or to make it look more full. But still, 40,000 is 40,000. That's a lot of people. And I know they didn't just give away 39,999 tickets. So even with the free tickets like they do, he still had to have a good turnout. And then most recently with this pay-per-view number, 350,000. So really there's no reason Erislandy Lara fight makes no sense. So people, please stop saying that a Lara fight makes no sense because Lara doesn't have a brand or a fan base, because it's clear that despite not being a household name like Angulo, Canelo can still do very solid pay-per-view numbers. So hopefully we see that. We see a Lara, we see him in there with the James Kirkland, Andrade, somebody good that's going to test him, because it looks like his skill set is improving. He's learning on the job and maturing as a fighter, and his superstar is growing. So let me know what you guys think. As always, hate, comment, or subscribe. Till next video, it's Ego signing off.